So our second speaker this morning is Scott Hishka. He's it's a producer profile, and Southwest sponsored Scott to be here today. So thank you, Southwest. Scott manages the Mountain Vista sow unit for Sunterra Farms in Alberta. Scott from Sunterra Farms manages 4,000 sows, farrow to nursery, and oversees a 600 head farrow to finish Berkshire farm and a Lacombe barn. Scott grew up on a mixed farm in eastern Saskatchewan. He attended his Bachelor of Science in Agriculture from the University of Saskatchewan in 1997. Scott started with Sunterra, formerly PIC, in 1997, working his way up through all areas of production. Scott resides in Carbon, Alberta with his wife Trish and their sons Dylan and Caden. Please welcome Scott.
Thanks, Marcia. So I was going to give Marcia a bit of a hard time, and if anybody didn't really like my presentation, she was the one that asked me to be here. Move into this. Start with a little humor. Well, we'll see if it's humorous. So NASA, first sending astronauts into space, they had a bit of a problem. Their standard ballpoint pen wouldn't work, so they spent 10 years and $12 million trying to come up with a pen that would work at minus 300, work in space, and write on glass, while the Russians used a pencil. So my talk is going to be a little bit maybe along that line. So here's the sow farm in east of Drumheller. So we're 30 minutes east of Drum, built in 97. So the farm, I don't think that makes sense. There we go. Is that better? Now it's echoing. All right. So, and then in the farm, the gestation area, 2 gestation rooms now that are loose housing, 1 breeding implantation room, 0 to 40 days, and then 1 wean room, also with open sows. An off-site isolation farm, or isolation barn, right in the middle of nowhere, 40 kilometers from our sow farm, and then an off-site nursery with 12,000 spaces. So here's a picture of what our gestation room would look like. 1,184 crates with partially slat in the back of the sow. And this is the existing crates that we have for our gestation and implantation phase. So some of the reasons to move to loose sow housing, some of the reasons that we consider. New code, so it's coming in, we want to think about this and its implications for our farm. Aging facility, we do have galvanized crates, so the crates were in decent repair, but some of the gates were getting pretty rough and having issues. We had to address that, and the legs of the crates were getting worn off, and we had to address that. Customer requirement, we had a deal where we're NEE production, and part of that they wanted us to move into loose housing as part of that, so it was a good motivator. And with that, a little bit of incentive to offset some of the costs in our system. So financially for us, it was the right time. We didn't have the opportunity to learn from a lot of others. So these are main considerations. So now it is time to come up with a plan. Can we do move to your phones, and we'll do a quick survey, see if this works. Just kind of last minute we threw this in. It's live. So, are you or have you part of a loose house system, considering converting, not given any thought, or decided not to convert? I think earlier we kind of seen there was what percentage of people were producers. All right. That's good. Excellent. So about 50-50, either converted or considering. So I think that shows definite interest in. Okay. All right, so research. So planning stage, we want to do as much research as we can, figure out what's out there, learn from others, mistakes hopefully, and ask lots of questions. What are your options? So new build or renovation of existing space. Are you going to modify your production? So is it going to change what you're doing or how you're going to flow it? So now's the time to consider that. What system does your barn layout allow? And with conversions, that's probably one of the biggest things. And it was our driver on where we ended up going with our system. What square footage is available? Is it all usable? Is there extra space that you could incorporate into the system? Who's going to do the renovation, in-house or contractors? Out west, contractors are pretty slim for agriculture, so that's a serious concern. There hasn't been a lot of building, and so there isn't the infrastructure with the contractors, and a lot of them are into the oil field. So in-house is a big thing, so is this something that we can do? How much do you want to budget, or how much can you budget? So our first option that we're looking at is ESF. So then it's talking about that. We have good control with an ESS system. So how does that overlay? Doesn't quite show up, but I mean, here we have very small slotted areas that were behind the sow. So a 7.5 foot crate with 33 inches that were slotted area. And then we also ended up with a solid back alley. So huge concern of how would this function with very little slotted area, and is it going to turn into a large mess? And then with raised front alleys, we've got to consider how are we going to make this a functional pen. Too much uncertainty with this kind of layout, and then the cost to dig that out and then go with a fully slotted or lay over top of what we're sitting with. It's just a little bit more than we wanted to do. So shoulder stalls, and then what size shoulder stall? Large pen, small pen. Talked a lot with Jennifer Brown. What's the right size? And she didn't give me an exact answer. It's like, big is good, not too small. So, okay, what's going to work into one of our rows? How does it divide up? How does that divide into our weekly farrowings? What kind of number is going to work for our flow? So I kind of looked at, oops, that's not the pointer button. So I looked at, okay, how large can I go? And then depending on how many sows I put in there, what kind of square footage is it going to give me? And then I also needed to look at, we had some single rows that I was going to convert. What would that look like? And then we're going to end up with some really long, narrow pens. That probably isn't going to work. So, some of these are options that I needed to consider, and then something down on this end that we didn't end up with something that was too long and narrow and creating too many roadblocks and settlements. So part of the planning calculation, so where we're starting at, so pre-conversion, 4,300 sows, 19.5 day wean age, putting out a 5.6 kilo pig, 183 farrowings per week, and our born alive was sitting at about 13.6. And then our nursery performance was down here, and our pigs per year, 14,000 is what we were doing just before we converted. We were up to 30 pigs per sow right at this point. So now conversion assumptions. So we're thinking, okay, with the space that we're going to lose on the sows, this is going to reduce the herd down to 3960. This is going to give us a wean age bump, and that should convert into a wean weight of 6.1. The extra days are going to give us some litter size bump, and we should be able to maintain our pre-wean mortality, but with the mixing, the competitive feeding, we feel that we're going to see a bit of an increase. I mean, we're not starting with a good number on sow mortality, and we're feeling that it's going to increase a bit. So a bit of a negative of the system. So with this, we're going to have an offset into the nursery, a heavier exit weight through a heavier entry weight and the same days, lower mortality. Higher mortality at this point was pre-conversion. We're already antibiotic free and dealing with those roadblocks. And then our feed conversion, maybe a slight increase there, because we're going to have this healthier, older pig, calls the same, and then the net, a reduction in pigs per year, but higher value pigs going out of the nursery, and higher quality, higher value out of the nursery. So, decision was made, option 2, our budget, we came in less than 200,000. I initially sat down and, so we had converted, plans to convert all of our sows, so 17,000 sows converted in 24 months. The first ones were done were just all conversions. Large budget, quite a process. I sit down with our president and I lay my budget out, and it took about 5 minutes. And I started at 100,000. We said, well, maybe we'll even double that to allow for some one-offs. And so it was a pretty easy budget to pass. Shoulder stalls. So we ended up with 15 sows per 18 sow stalls, and that was what our pens were going to look like. And then where I had gilt accommodations, we still had enough square footage that we'd be able to go space for space. So 19.2 on the sows, 17 square feet for a gilt. Minimal herd size reduction, continue with production, in-house renovation. We were just going to hire on a couple extra staff, get our maintenance guys working on the project, and retain all current infrastructure with water and electrical, feed system, pit layout. And our crates were in decent condition that we were able to use the existing crates and just cut them off. So here's our layout. So what the solid lines here, when we first started, we want to leave these dividers. We thought some additional dividers are going to allow for some protection for the sows. So I figured I'm going to start with additional ones, and then as we go, we can remove them, cut them down, shorten them, because I know that if we remove them all, I'm probably not going to go back in and start adding them, but to go in and cut a few out would be simple enough. So within the pen, we'd have a gate that we're going to put in either in this corner or in one of the corners, and then quickly moving the animals in. We kind of realized we were having a bit of a roadblock here, so ended up removing divider at this point. So executing the plan, so we needed to first reduce the herd size through calling opportunity animals, bringing that down and dropping our service target. We also needed to change our flow, so now we're going from a system where all of our sows were moved into location, bred in location, moved back to fairway. 2 movements, except for any fallout that we have to deal with. So now we're going to a system of moving sows into a weaned area, then into a breeding area, then into the loose penning. Flip the rotation, so we were running head-to-head system, and we had to move that to a tail-to-tail system to allow the pen layout. Adjust the service targets, match the new herd size, create a working space to do the conversion. So we figured 3 pens. If we gave the maintenance guys that much space, they'd be able to work with that. Source of materials. I got an eye opener on the lag time on getting slots in. We're in Alberta and I'm purchasing slots from Ontario because that's the best place to get them from. So there's some logistics in getting those in. Now it's to pick a date and start the project. So here's the guys doing some of the renovation, doing some welding. Some issues with this. I mean, we didn't stop production one bit, so we've got guys in the barn doing galvanized welding while we're in full production. So a good chunk of it was through the summertime, so we got ventilation at max. And it's kind of hard to see the guys, but I mean, they're wearing full respirators all day long with the air intake kind of draped across their shoulders, and did an awesome job. It was quite a chore. So here's a finished pen. Challenge we had here was this solid flooring in the back. These slots are great for a crated system, but then the loose system, our back slot gap here was 2.5 inches. So would drop our foot straight in there. So either it's replace all the slots, 2,000 crates worth in the entire barn, or figure out a way to cover this. The model I had seen was just covering with stainless and anchoring it in. Didn't like that, just didn't think it was going to hold, and it created a slippery surface. So can we do it with concrete? So it took a few tries, but we came up with a way to get some grout in there and get it to stick. So here's finished pen. Sal's loafing around, and that's what you see for most of the day until feeding time. We also had to come up with a pass-through. We want to walk these pens daily, and as Sylvan had said, if you don't have an easy way in and out, it's probably not going to happen. I didn't really have a blueprint. I built this off of about 3 pictures I got out of another barn and PIC had built. So the pass-through, there's a couple comments they had made that, well, you maybe want to put a chain, you want to do something because the odd cell could get stuck. So I'm like, nah, something I don't want to deal with. So I want to make this as narrow as possible that we could still get people to pass through. So it's a bit of a challenge. You get the vet in, you get Greg who comes through there and it's like, can you get through the gate? And the vets have a hard time, and then you get some other guys that come through and they figure it out really quickly. Thanks, Greg. So what we had to do there was we had to add a step. So you can't pass through it unless you kind of use the step. You lift yourself up and through. You find the shortest person in the barn. You build it around their structure, and if they could get through, then you assume that everybody else can. So it does work well, and in over a year of production, we haven't had one cell that managed to get in there, and I still have no idea how she got stuck in there. But I'll never know. So the other thing was for space efficiency, we got an integrated sick pen that I came up with. So my biggest thing to overcome was how many cells I had to give up and how much space I had to allocate for everything. So we're already losing space in here. Now if I'm going to pull cells out, now I'm going to lose extra space. So with this, if it's in use, it folds out. When it's not in use, it unpins from the front, and then the gate unhinges, and then we pin it right up against the wall. So no square footage is lost, and we're able to put a cell into the pen. If we have another cell that's looking compromised in the morning, we can switch them out. They've already established their pecking order, and there's no additional aggression at mixing when you reintroduce that cell. The other thing I'm considering is, can I introduce a new sow into a group by moderating her in this stall for a period, and then bringing her back into the group and completely maximize my space, but we haven't got to that stage yet. Here's a video, see if it plays. There we go. It's feeding time. Everything looks so much better on the computer. So we have some pens that work out really well, some groups, whether it's just the social behavior of that group, but you get some groups that they are a little more active. We do have more stanchions and more spaces than sows. Just as, I mean, the way we're cutting the stalls off, the drops are there, whether we drop feed in all of them or not. The double gate there, we'll still have a drop above that gate of a sow in our sick pen. And in this pen, you know, lots of activity. The next two pens, nothing. And then there's some activity. And we're still, you know, still learning and figuring out what works best. We were at pelleted feed, we went to mash feed, we increased the fiber. All things to try and to reduce the aggression, increase the satiety. And with the gilts, it works better than with the sows. They are already in a group system. We've only had them installed for a very short time, and then they're back into a group. So those pens seem to work a little bit better than the sows. The other question was, as everybody's worked through and they've been their entire life within the system, does the aggression go down? Possibly, as now we've been through a few cycles and it's working better. We've definitely learned some things. Herd design, so we were able to incorporate a dedicated wean area. Before we're weaning throughout the barn, so to put in, you know, additional gates, and that was impractical. So now we're able to have a nice area to get some good boar exposure. We bring a team of boars in. We've got guillotine gates that are above, and they're all counterbalanced from the back of the pen. You can operate them from either end and drop a gate, and then open the next one and allow the boars through and checking. So that is an addition that we were able to add in. Next, we take our animals that were heat checked in that last system, move them into our snakes, and now we've changed this over. We've got a single snake, incorporated PCI to create some efficiency that we didn't have before to make up for some of the extra sow movements. So it's easy to, you know, tell the staff that here's the benefit, you know, to outweigh, you know, the extra movements, and, you know, there's a win and a pro and a con to it. So it was a little easier to sell the whole project when you gave them PCI. They loved it. That seemed to work really well. Then 40 days in the crates, and then move them into the pens. We're able to group them by parity and size, and this is really important with trying to manage our feed the best we could. Benefits of loose housing, mobility, cell fitness, lower stillbirth rates, lower pre-wean mortality, increased cell comfort, cell welfare. These are all straight out of the book. Meets new code of practice, ability to group like-sized animals and similar parity animals, reduction in herd size with similar improved performance through the addition in weanage and the benefits within better piglet quality and nursery performance. So it's increased lactation length, wean weight, decreased nursery feed cost, and higher feeder pig values. These are things that we did realize. Benefits of a shoulder stall system, cost, no training required, low tech, no dependency on technical support. Feed system goes out, you grab the cart and off you go. No need to relocating feeder water lines. So drawbacks of shoulder cell system, lose the ability to individualize self-feeding. So we have to think of how can we be creative and keep the condition in check. The greater feed competition, labor intensive, so that's an issue, more movements. Stockmanship was probably one of the biggest things. You don't have the ability to go around and see who didn't eat and who's got feed sitting in front of them. Now we have to be in the barn, we have to have highly skilled people going through at the time when feed's dropping and making observations and doing something with those observations. You've got a short window to see what's going on. The rest of the day they're lying around and the picture's not quite so clear and you don't want to go and get everybody up just for the sake of it. So the aggression, higher sow mortality through some lameness, higher late term fallout, and this one caught us by surprise. We figured we had it all checked out. We've had sows in groups before, but just with the competitive feeding, I guess we've had some late term fallout. Talk about some of that later. Space efficiency. So take home messages. What are the reasons you have to consider renovating? So what are your reasons? Come up with a solid plan that's workable within your footprint and your unit. Have a solid budget plan and allow some room for surprises until you really pressure wash things off and see what's under that layer. You don't really know what you're faced with sometimes. Use comparative data prior and after your renovation. And thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions for Scott? We have a few minutes where we can have a couple questions.
Are they back up? Most recently, they're like in the last 10 weeks, where we're back to where we wanted them to be. Yeah.
Just hold on, Jeff. Just.
When you cut the stalls off, you cut them off right up at the front. Can you leave a foot or two on them so the sows can't move back and forth on the feeders?
Yes. So, I mean, the issue you got to deal with there is, like Sylvan highlighted too, is you can't incorporate all that other space into your sow space allowance. So the more you leave, the more you want in behind. We've also converted another farm where they left a little bit more space, and seemed that works well too.
So you talked about you tried pellet feed, you tried mash feed, you tried to increase fiber. You just kind of said none of that. So none of that really made much difference.
No, it does make a difference. So moving from in that progression, all did make improvements. Pelleted feed is consumed very quickly. A boss is able to consume hers and whatever else she wants very quickly. Now with slowing the feeding time down, we found that other sows are able to get more of their meal, and then increasing the fiber helps with some of our sow mortality, some of the gut issues, and the idea that with some of that fiber we get a little more satiety and reduce some stress.
So no, to speak of this morning and yourself, there was a time when somebody used it as like a screw feeder that would slowly meter feed out.
Trickle feeding system.
Trickle feed, yes.
Yeah.
Didn't look at that.
We talked to, there's a producer in Alberta that we work with or associate with, that they do have a trickle feeding systems and they do work well when they work. So you have the chance of more out of feed events, and if it doesn't work perfectly, there's a drawback too. Back to the council.
Thanks, Scott. We're gonna wrap it up for questions right now, just to keep us on time, but Scott will be on our panel later on today, and he will be here for the day, as well as Sylvain. So if you have questions, please feel free to find them and ask some of the questions.